Hi, someone on the main channel asked quite a reasonably good question of why I don't just turn my lights off when I'm reviewing products with glary screens like this, like turn off overhead lights. Well, it's not as easy as that when you're shooting video like this because, well, let me show you. Okay, I've got my I'll show you a wider shot in a minute of my two studio lights I actually have beside me, which kind of like fill in with good color rendering index, high CRI color light coming from both directions like this. Plus I've got my main overhead studio lights. They're actually not an ideal angle, but let me switch them off and show you what happens. Okay, so these are my overhead lights. You see how sort of like dark and manky and like shadowy everything looks, right? And yes, I've got fixed white balance here, but yeah, you can see how it just looks, really awful. So it's not like I can, shoot a decent quality video like that, unfortunately. So let me take the camera off the tripod. Sorry, I'm just going to do this in one hit. Let's have a look here. Okay, see, I've got my two studio lights like that. I've got these are Aperture, what are they? Amaran HR672Cs for those playing along at home, and I use two of these as like just fill lights. I don't have to, but they're just nice to sort of like fill in with a higher color rendering index. Anyway, so up above here's my overhead studio lights, and you can see. Sorry, it's the exposure, but they're over the bench. Now, it's really a trade-off of where to put these at the moment. They are sort of not quite over the bench. They're just sort of back a bit like that. And it's just, it's really difficult because you can only place those in certain locations based on the roof tiles up there. So, if I put them too far back, then they're too far. If I put them too far forward, anyway, it's really quite annoying. So, there you go. That's why I can't just switch the lights off when I do videos like this, because if I do, then it just looks horrid. And by the way, let me switch off these fill lights. So that one on the left and that's one on the right. It's still okay. Like, I've shot 500, I don't know, 700, I don't know, maybe 1,000 videos without these lights. I've only started using them in like the last year. I've had them for a bit longer, but generally, if I switch them on, it just like, if you get like a color card and things like that, like colors just look better. I'm not sure if that'll show up, but anyway, it's just nicer to have a couple of fill lights in the front. So generally when I'm shooting video like this, I want to have, you don't want to have lights coming directly down from directly above, because that just creates horrible shadows on like button controls on, yeah, actually, that's a good example. Well, it's better on a scope, but you can see how there's all shadows. Right? Just take a look under that knob. You see how there's a shadow like that, but if I switch on my fill lights, it's going to be, see, it just appears much better. So if you have the lights directly above you, then the shadowing will be absolutely horrible on products like this. So that's why my overhead lights, I like to have them a bit back. And when I move back to the older lab, I'm going to put them back in the original position, which was slightly back, like 500 millimeters back from where they are now. So that, just imagine, this is the edge of the bench. Here, like, well, here you go. There's the edge of the bench there. So imagine I've got my camera over here like this. You want the light coming in at sort of an angle like that. You don't want it coming directly down above, because as I said, it creates all shadows on your controls and everything else. So you want the light coming in sort of like not quite from behind the camera, because I always shoot everything. I hate shooting overhead camera shots like this. Like, I can put my camera right overhead, but this, to me, these overhead camera shots, these are not natural shots. That is not naturally how you'd look at something. I like to shoot stuff that at sort of like as I'm looking down the lens, me standing at the bench. So you're like looking through my eyes pretty much about like what I'm seeing. I much prefer that. Please leave it in the comments what you think about that, because there's other people like Big Clive, for example. You know, he's hugely popular and he shoots everything from above like that, and you know, fantastic content. But I'm not a fan of the, like shooting above like that. So, yeah, please. So there are people who are very successful shooting like that, but that's just not my preferred format. I much prefer looking, like standing behind the camera, my arms come around behind the camera like this, and I play with, you know, I play with the thing just looking at it like that. So there you go. Yeah, lighting. It's, it's really difficult. So this is why I can't just turn off the main lights overhead and shoot something, because it just looks awful and shadowy, and oh, it's like, yeah, if I wanted to move the lights back on the roof, you would have to have the entire roof to cater for all different types of scenarios. You'd have to have your entire roof covered in LED panels and then switch them on in whatever, you know, pattern you needed to get the right angle for a particular product like this. And these ones with reflective screens, they're just yeah, they're just horrible. So now you can see the lights from the back part of my lab, they're still on. But even though I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights on back then, it's still, like this side of the lab, because it's a 100 square meter lab, it's really dark. So I need those overhead lights to do it. And it doesn't matter like where you, like, well, it doesn't, like if I put them back, look, so that's the first one there, I'm tilting it like that, I would have to put it back. So if I put them back like half a ceiling tile, then I wouldn't get any reflections. Well, I wouldn't get many. I'd still get the camera. You still get the reflections, but you wouldn't get the harsh light like that. And yeah, you could switch them off directly overhead and have ones to the side and things like that. But all products are, when you're shooting different types of products, you need different types of lighting scenarios. So the ones I've got overhead plus my fill lights, they tend to do, you know, fairly well for most general circumstances, but sometimes you just get really annoying, glary products like that, and, you know, unless you really have ultra flexible lighting systems, there's not much you can do about it. So anyway, good. Thanks for asking that question. I think it was Hughes Size, sorry, I can't remember, for asking that question. So there you go. Leave it in the comments down below what you think. Catch you next time.